Hey everyone. Alright, I have a question for you. For those of you with younger children and you're stuck in the house because of this virus, are you constantly asking your kids, okay, what do you want to do next? What do you want to do next? What do you want to do now? Okay, what should we do now? Well, then this video is for you. I thought I'd share some of the ideas I've had to entertain kids and to make the day go by somewhat smoother and less boring, I guess. And you don't burn yourself out.
Caught in an action, I can't rewind. And in my head, I'm screaming, but out of my mind, I'm still too young to feel this way.
Since this virus, I have no job. So when the opportunity presented itself to babysit for the essential workers who do have to work, I took the opportunity. A couple who both have to work and they have a 4-year-old son and nobody to watch him since all the daycares are closed, but they have to work. So that is where I came in. So for those of you who are new, I am a speech language pathology graduate. And I've been babysitting since I was 14 years old and studying kids throughout school. So I know a lot about kids, and I really love spending time with them and just helping their little minds grow. Okay, so I've taken various clips and pictures here and there to use as examples. But my first huge day-altering piece of advice is to make a schedule. It's going to make the child's life easier, your life easier, everybody in the house life easier, even the dog probably. What I do is they have a big whiteboard at his level, and I write out everything we're gonna do in the morning. I mean, I'm only there until the afternoon. I do have other families where I watch them at night, but you can make a morning routine and a night routine, or make it all in one, whatever you prefer. I'll put what I did over here, but so essentially I took the whiteboard and I wrote out every activity we're gonna do, and then I put a box next to it. This just visually helps you and the child know what's planned next, and for the activities that they don't necessarily like learning or nap time, it's already built into the schedule, and you know, you can just say, hey, the schedule says so, so that's what we're doing. So the drawing the little box next to them helps the child be able to check them off, X them off, erase them, whatever. It also targets their fine motor skills, having to cross them out themselves or make a check or a smiley face. Again, they can visually see what they've accomplished, what they have left to do, and what's next. Okay, so let's talk about the different components that I have here, at least in my example. This is just the example one. I change this from day to day depending on the weather, depending on what activities we have planned for the day, and also you can change it based on your child's interests. So the first thing I have is to brush his teeth. That's something he does after breakfast. And kids aren't always motivated to do this, so having this built into the schedule just puts the blame on the schedule. That's what the schedule says, that's what it's time for. So learning time. I'm gonna talk a little bit about this more in depth because I wanna talk about some of the activities I've been doing to keep him motivated and using his little brain. You can always look up some activities that are for your child or children's age level, whether you have different age children or you have one kid. It's good to see what they're supposed to be developing for their age. So I write out a little schedule for learning. I write out, okay, it's learning time, and what are the things that we're going to be doing. It's just easier for them and for you to see what is going to happen and give them a visual of when it's going to end too, because they're more motivated to do it if they know how long it's going to last. I do this a lot in therapy because it's the same thing. Throughout the session, I'll write out everything we're gonna do throughout the therapy session so that they see, hey, we're checking things off and this is how long before it's done. So one activity I like to do for 4-year-olds is talking about shapes. So I drew them out and then I covered them and had him identify all of them. And for the ones that he wasn't as familiar with, I just taught him what they were and tried to reinforce those newer, less common shapes. I dotted the outline of the shape and then I had him trace it afterwards. And then on the back, I just had him draw his own versions of the shapes just to practice those skills a little bit more. The ones that were new for him were crescent and trapezoid. So I've been really kind of focusing on reiterating, hey, what was that one again? Oh yeah, crescent. So that he just gets it a little bit easier into his vocabulary of shapes. Another activity I like to do is talking about how two things are the same and different. This is a skill that 4-year-olds are beginning to develop or have already developed. Here are some examples. I write out ones that I know have similarities and differences so that it's clear. Again, a lot of the times the similarity is a category, so really reinforcing what a category is helps them to identify the similarities.
Here's the same.
Because they're both body parts?
Awesome, which is the
Category!
nice job. Body parts is the category they're both in. What's different about eyes and ears?
Eyes don't listen.
What do they do?
They see,
And ears.
listen.
Nice job. That's how they're
You
different.
can help cue them with the color, the size, the shape of it might be similar or different, and just pointing out those if they need help or getting a little bit stuck, but not giving them the answer is helpful. Another activity I did is cutting, just reinforcing those fine motor skills. I used numbers for this activity, so we talked about what all these numbers were and how they were all odd numbers and what odd and even numbers are. I had him cut out the boxes. He had a little bit of trouble just because he was using those kid scissors that were not really cutting, so I gave him a little bit bigger scissors and helped him a little bit more. Just using those fine motor skills and really developing those hand movements are really important at this age because they're going to start learning how to write a lot more. All right, so another activity is taking a flat pan or plate and pouring a 1/4 cup of sugar on it, just enough to coat the bottom. You don't want it too thick. But I use this to draw numbers in it. So you can use sugar, you can use salt, you can use sand, whatever you have. I like to use sugar just because it's not gross to touch, I guess. If the kid likes to eat it, use salt because then they won't eat it. But also I recommend putting whatever the sugar's on, put a cookie sheet underneath for when the sugar spills a little bit. So you can target uppercase letters or lowercase letters, whatever range the child is working on depending on their age. You can have little alphabet cards written out or whatever you have laying around so that they can reference the shape, because you're practicing writing the shape and how it's supposed to be written. You really want to re-solidify the right way to form the letters. And then you just shake it and reset. So here's a little clip of him doing that.
Go.
Good job.
Okay, so that was learning time, and as I go, I check off everything. The next thing I am going to talk about is play. I wrote play on there. You want to build it into the schedule just to help give them a free time to play, to choose whatever they want to do. They're also then more compliant to do whatever the activity is that they didn't necessarily choose because they had that free time to choose whatever games they wanted to play. I personally built in bathroom breaks just because he's 4 and he is potty trained, but he does need that reminder every so often. Just like any other kid, they don't want to miss out on any of the fun. So having those breaks built in is, again, putting the blame on the schedule and saying, you know, it's time to go to the bathroom, let's at least just try. Okay, reading. So I built this in just because I wanted him to be reading and still solidifying those skills and different aspects that they're supposed to be building while they're in school, but because of the virus, they're out of school, they're out of daycare, preschool, every kind of school is just closed. Also, having this built in, it just breaks up the playtime. Some people like to read while they play, which is great too. It just seems like you're doing a completely different activity and it makes the day go by smoothly. So what I do is he reads a book to me and then I read a couple books to him. So his reading, he can't really read. He knows what sounds the letters make, so he can sound out words a little bit, the easy ones. And I use a more picture-based book. So this is his vehicle book that talks about different categories of vehicles that there are. And so he knows, like, hey, that's a plane. But if it's a certain type of plane that he might not be able to specify, it has the label of what that is underneath, and he has to sound out what that plane is. And so because this vehicle book has different categories, I took the opportunity to teach him what a category is and how all of these things fit into one group, just re-solidifying any vocabulary you don't think that they know. So then you read them some books. I like to write out the different parts of the story I want them to be thinking about. So if you have a small whiteboard or a piece of paper, or if you have any binders laying around that laminate on it, you can just stick a piece of white printer paper into it and it can become a whiteboard. So you can change this based on the child's age, but because he is 4, I altered it to be a little bit simpler. So we talk about the characters, we talk about the setting, we talk about the problem of the story, we talk about how the characters feel about that problem, then we talk about how they solved it, so the solution, and how the characters feel at the end now that they have solved the problem. I also like to keep a little running list of the new vocabulary that they have learned throughout the story. I just write it out, and you could also draw pictures to help the child remember what happened in the story. And so just talking those out just really reinforces those storytelling skills and the narrative skills that they should be developing. You also might have to teach what these all mean. I had to teach him our characters. What is the setting? So the setting is where the story takes place. Where do the characters spend the most time? So you might have to explain some of those to them, but again, that can be a vocabulary word. Also, if you need to, you can reference back to the story and open up to maybe where the setting was. The next thing I recommend doing is playing a game. Not only does this provide an opportunity for you guys to bond, it also provides an opportunity to practice those pragmatic skills, such as turn taking, talking about how to win and lose, what that looks like to be a good sport. So I also like to build in meal times. It's just easy to see when it is time to eat, because who doesn't like to know when it's time to eat? I add in washing hands ahead of time as its own box, just so that they do it, they feel motivated to check the box off after, and they're clean, you know? The next thing I want to talk about is little exercises. So the days, especially when it's raining, we can't go outside, it's good to just get some jitters out, especially after sitting and learning for a longer period of time. We have this dice here that has whiteboard on all 6 sides, and I write kid-friendly exercises on them, and so it turns it into a game. So you roll the dice, you take turns rolling the dice and doing whatever the dice rolls on. So with jumping jacks, I'll do, okay, regular jumping jacks, okay, now slow jumping jacks, and then fast jumping jacks, just to get all the wiggles out. And it ends up just becoming a game, and you can stop it whenever. You'll be like, okay, 2 more, whatever it is. I write like 10 bunny hops or something, but if that's not enough and I think they can do more, I'll be like, all right, let's see if we can go around the kitchen island or to the bathroom and back. So things like that just gets some extra hops out. All right, so the other thing I like to do is go outside. If it's nice out, go outside. It's a change of scenery. One of my favorite activities to do outside is racing. So I like to time them while they run. You get to stand there and hold your phone as a timer, and they run and run and run. It's amazing. What I do is I find a starting point, whether it's a flag or you have some chalk, and an ending point like an object or a chalk line again, a mailbox, something, a pole, whatever it is. Just keep doing that. They like it because they are like, okay, let's see if we can do it faster this time. And so they get to kind of race themselves. If you have 2 children or more of different ages, pick different locations for them to run to. Like if you have an older child, have them run a greater distance in a different direction. So if you have a sidewalk, this is really great to do. So draw the ending point a little bit closer for the child who is younger and a little bit further for the child who is older. So then if they're running in different directions, they're not arguing. It minimizes the arguing and the I beat you and I'm faster competition. Other things I like to do is just take a walk, a bike ride, doing chalk, things like that. But one other thing that I found is really fun with chalk is that when the sun is out, to draw each other's shadows. So doing funny different poses, like show me your muscles, and like different poses that you do, and you trace them and make funny faces. Give them crazy hair after in all different colors. It's just a different activity to do with chalk. One of the families I babysit for actually made a giant chutes and ladders game out on the sidewalk, so the kids were the game pieces. I thought that was a really good idea. Just different things you can do with chalk. These activities also help keep them away from recreational spaces like public playgrounds, just away from others in general in times like these, because it's really hard, especially if you live in an apartment, not to go to the local playground or whatever. Okay, so after we've played outside or inside, I like to set a time that it ends. So he takes a nap around 1:30, 1:45. I set a specific time that it's time to clean up. So I say at 1:25, it gives him enough time to pout a little bit about it and to actually clean up before it's time to go to his nap. I also have him go to the bathroom. But then I show him on my watch, I'm like, see, look, it's 1:25, it's time to clean up, because you guessed it, the schedule says so. Blame it on the schedule. So it's a good idea to give them warnings beforehand, such as, you know, there's 5 more minutes. You can set a 5-minute timer on your clock, or set the timer to go off at 1:25, whichever, so that it's not in your control. It's not your fault that you're ending playtime. The schedule says 1:25, and look, the alarm says it's 1:25, so it's time to clean up. it just helps those transitions be a little bit smoother throughout the day. Then comes nap time. Child I watch right now doesn't particularly like nap time, like what kid does. So at the beginning of the day, when we've written out nap time ends our routine because that's when his mother comes home. And so at the beginning of the day, we talk about what some of the appropriate behaviors when it comes time for nap time, aka not having a meltdown and throwing a tantrum. So what are those positive behaviors that you can reinforce? Always use positive reinforcement. Listening to what the adult says, what the parent says, the caregiver, whoever it is, using a calm voice to express how you feel, telling them that it is okay to express that they're frustrated and that they don't want to take a nap, but hey, that napping helps you grow stronger, just things like that. And then when they do use those appropriate behaviors at the time of the nap time, you want to reward those right away positively, like, hey, I love that you listened to my words and you're following the schedule and you're gonna grow so big, and all of those things, because then the next day they'll still be hesitant, but they'll know they'll get that reinforcement. So this is where our day stops, just because I get there really early in the morning and I stay until the afternoon. But you can also continue on with your day through a night schedule, or you can just make a nighttime schedule separate, whatever it is. It's also fun to make the schedule with them so they can have some input in it. Anyway, so I hope these examples were helpful for you guys. I know how it feels. I don't have any kids personally that I'm stuck in the house with, but I'm stuck in the house with somebody else's kid. So it's the same thing. I'm with him for the entire day, like 7 or 8 hours that I'm with him all day. So it just helps the day go by more smoothly when you have a purpose to the day and a routine and schedule to follow. And it's just easier to do on a whiteboard because you can alter it and change it as you go, or day to day. I hope you guys are all staying healthy, and I hope your kids aren't driving you completely insane, and that these activities and suggestions relieve some of that stress and chaos in your house. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Leave some comments down below on what has worked for you and if you tried any of these and what your kid thought about that. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!